Hello, my name is Daniel Yates, and I'm trying to make this video reacting to Clints Reptiles. His
Have an awful lot of you who
This absolutely breaks my heart. What do we do now? Video about what happened in Florida. So most of you probably don't know who I am. Clint, if you're watching this, I hope you are. I made you a freaking bearded dragon business card holder and stuff. Like I was trying to get a hold of you months ago for that shit. But I mean, sometime like last year. But understand that I have a shit ton of respect for Clint. He has done amazing things for our community, and it's been very fascinating. Now, almost everything that he said was well said, well done, just great, just great research and news. I mean, I fully agree that we don't know what happened, why they euthanized those animals when they did, when there was no reason to do that. That was not okay. And yeah, I mean, it's basically traumatized. I hear people who don't have reptiles who just like they're hearing about this everywhere. This is huge in places that we didn't even know knew us as anything. Now, there's just so much to say, and I'm trying to keep this simple and easy, and so on. Uh, Understand, guys, that you may not like me, you may not even understand me, you may not know me. I'm an actual scientist. My job as a chemist, I have a degree in physics. I actually posted about cancer and fighting. Let's see what I cancer and other science to save animals. I actually have different types of degrees in this video that actually matter to saving people with cancer, and then actually some things that we do with those types of sciences that will actually save animal lives if we use them correctly. So Brian Barchuk is just an amazing job, and that's just one of those things. I mean, if you really want to save people, those are some of the new science stuff that you can actually get degrees in that are super important. Understand that? So that's who I am. I actually, my job is to create new studies and perform studies for a massive agriculture corporation. Now, I am trained to do multiple types of studies: quantitative, qualitative, sociology, psychology, communication, business, mathematics. I have degrees in physics. I have studied chaos theory and actually computer programmed it. I am trained to put almost any type of study that you want to together that you could ever imagine. So just hold on to that for a second. So when I talk about doing my own research, understand that. Just like Clint and Daniel from USARK Florida, I am trained to do studies. So when I do my own studies, do my own research, I am not looking on the internet to find somebody to match my opinion. I am finding some actual way to study it. I study empathy on my channel. And I am getting really sick and tired of people using it incorrectly. It is really, really very poignant to say this. And you may fully hate me for saying this. Stop telling people empathy, to be empathetic. Most of these people, and Clint, you're right. Those guys, the odds are that they did not pull that boa on purpose. They dislocated themselves mentally from the situation because most likely they are normal people with normal empathy, and they made a mistake because they weren't focused on the job properly. They were improperly trained. They were improperly trained to handle the situation. But the other side, one of the guys that pulled the bow out does have a history of retaliation. Other than that, there is no signs that I see that these people have less empathy than you or I. So, I mean, empathy is a tool to be used. Stop telling people to be more empathetic. It's like telling people to be yourself. Hey, you should be yourself. Just be yourself. Be yourself. Just be yourself. Who have you been? Why have you been somebody else? Oh, you haven't been? Then what is this person talking about? So these people have empathy. If you want to use empathy, it's a tool. It is not the end all. When you can find somebody without empathy, that's when you should worry. But anybody that is relating anything to themselves is using empathy. They just may not be good at it. But it's normal. That is normal. The fact that they had dark sense of humor shows that they're dealing with the process of this mentally in not a healthy way. But MTs and fire department people do the same thing. It's really jacked up, but it is one of those things that helps them cope. And that's why it's actually better to understand that the only way to use empathy is like a child. Even though they're adults, talk to them like they're kids. What do you think that made that animal feel? How do you think that made that person feel? And then leave it alone. You don't need an answer. You just need to plant that and go. Like that's it. There's nothing more to it. To be honest with you, what I have found, and I have had Bill Stewart, Ryan McBay, because I've had some amazing people on the show and studied their empathy. And so this isn't coming out of nowhere. It's actually more important who you actually spend time with than empathy. Who you spend time with is more important than your empathy. Hold on to that. So if you can use that, who you spend time with is more important than your empathy. So that's the way we need to be approaching that. And so Clint said something very, very interesting off the cusp that I've been working on. Me on this channel, you may have heard me talk about laws that I want passed because they would change the way people think about animals by putting an obstacle in their way that's actually completely and easily hurdleable. Like they can just walk over it, but yet it's still an obstacle and it still makes them think. That's a good law. And Clint's the same way. It sounds like he's actually put some logic into what he's saying, which is what I do, even though a lot of people think that I don't. Well, I don't know how many people think I don't or do. I think most people think I'm just full of shit. And I have no idea what I'm talking about. But truthfully, I do. Honestly, Clint mentioned that if we can get everybody to see animals the exact same or something along those lines, kind of off the cusp, I'm already working on that. Somebody asked the question, can he team up with Legal Eagle? I love Legal Eagle. I would love to team up with Legal Eagle. But there's a gentleman by the name of Steve Lato in Michigan. And Steve Lato has done something.
Law. Here's
Steve Lato is actually a very cool guy, but he only talks. He sits here and talks. Really great guy. And so this, I'm trying to get him on. I've already talked to him. He said get back to him next month. We'll see if we can set this up to where he can explain if any laws, because he's an actual lawyer in real life. So was there any laws that any rights taken away from Chris Coffey? And then we're going to talk about this and what this could mean for reptiles to stop treating pets as property. What are some of the ramifications for that? Now, I'm putting a lot of thought into this, so I don't want to go into all of it now because there's no way to cover it in a short video like this. But I've already been thinking about that, and Clint just put this video out last night. So this is already in the works. I'm already thinking 10 years down the line to see if we could actually put reptiles on the same pedestal as pets in the court's eyes as dogs and cats to the courts. So we're already working on that. So that's very fascinating to me that he would say that. We're, like I said, we're on the same page. There's just some things that he's got to catch up on. And I do mean that. Because I'm thinking ahead. But Clint's wonderful. I have one issue with what he said. Let's not make this political. It is political. I don't that's the same thing as saying be yourself. And everybody needs more empathy. Everybody needs empathy. It's like, no, they already have empathy. This is already a legal matter. This is already a political matter. But to be honest with you, I did a video about the Nazis versus GOP Florida Animal Edition. Like, this is actually a video that's out there if you haven't seen it. It's based off of this gentleman's paper that his master thesis, that the actual Nazis had wonderful animal laws so good that Europe actually adopted them afterwards. They just changed the rhetoric to not be anti-Semitic, to be anti-Semitic, not to be Semitic like that, or whatever it is, to not be bad language, but to actually keep the animal parts of that law. And so the thing about communication, and here's the thing, is I am still learning more about communication in science, because I'm actually looking at these guys right now to learn more about this. This Alda Center for Communicating Science. The guy from MASH actually put this together. And I'm going to look more into this so I might be able to communicate the science of things better. And that's where I think we need to head with this. Because honestly, I talk to people outside and people don't get upset with me for talking politics. Because I explained to them that I am not a Democrat or Republican. And so when you want to politicize something, so one thing that he talks about in the historian thing is that some people actually went along with the Nazis because they had animal laws. Remember that. Understand that. Understand that they used nationalism to save animals. Nationalism is something we're dealing with now. And to preserve conservation of animals, there are animals. We're the United States, and they're United States wild animals, and we should protect them because they're ours. We're nationalizing them. That's a thought. It's how we talk about it that matters. Because I call into question that what he said is the opposite of what he thinks the results are. Because I understand what he's saying. Don't politicize it because it strips us. But the people that are probably stripped out of this are probably already stripped out. They're not caring. They're not going to care. There's nothing we can do to that. But we might be able to bring in more folks from the middle and so on, by actually politicizing this, but in a different way. How many of you people actually understand that there is science behind leadership? Read the book First Rate Madness. Talks about how like Gandhi, Churchill, Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr. had clinically depression. And that actually, because of that, they were best in times of crisis. Now, in times of peace, they were just awful, awful, awful leaders. In times of crisis, they actually were the better choice. There is actually science to leadership. And we're not talking about that. This is a way for us to actually talk about that, because this has really brought a lot of people together that would probably maybe never have gotten together. And us politicizing this in that manner could potentially bring us more together as a country. I literally called the Nazis to join us to fight against FWC and Ron DeSantis, because honestly, I'm 99% sure until we get rid of Ron DeSantis, FWC is not going to change. There is no sign that they've actually making changes. I see nothing. And Ron DeSantis isn't going to do it, and I could talk for days, and that's a whole other topic. Now you're going to go, well, I don't like that. That's really politicizing, and that's polarizing. And it's like, is it? Because I'm not saying, I'm literally telling Nazis to join us because Hitler, the person that they idolize, would have joined us. He was a vegetarian in that. So yeah, it's weird. I'm uncomfortable saying it, but I feel like we need multiple prong attacks. We need strategies that go beyond just be peaceful. We need strategies that actually have longer implications. We need strategies because at the end of this day, we're still not going to have laws changed. So we need strategies that actually create better for us and the animals in 10 years. We need to look at it that way. Not just let's just make sure we can keep our pets now. It's let's make sure we can keep our pets now and correct our hobby to actually put us on a better footing and actually create a better life for the animals in the world. And I think Clint's done a great job. But honestly, I still have questions. I would love to put a study together to see if we should be politicizing this or not. So Clint could still be right, but Clint could actually be wrong in the way he's looking at this. If we just talk about it as any other political issue, yeah, you could be super polarizing with it. But this isn't a simple political issue. This is an issue about animals, and most people love animals in some way, shape, or form. Even if they don't like snakes, they still love dogs and cats. Even the Nazis did. So there's actually a study. And Clint, if you want to get together, I would love to put a survey together and actually put this out there in the world to see if this should be something we should polarize in a way that actually contributes. If it would, we can actually do that study for psychology. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And I am all for it. I will put in the work to do that, guys. You don't understand. Like, I put in the work to do studies. I love doing studies. I have math degrees. This is great. I would do the study in a heartbeat. And I actually have been brainstorming because the way we're communicating, I think there's so many flaws in it. Now, understand the way politicians in the news outlet, propaganda works. FritoLay, I think it was 2000. Don't quote me on the year. I'm just going back as far as I think what year it might have been. And I believe 2016. I believe 2016, FritoLay decided that they were not going to advertise because they weren't for sure advertising on the Super Bowl works. They weren't for sure at all. So they were like, no, we're not going to put any money at all into advertising on the Super Bowl. Well, they lost millions of dollars over the next few months. Like literally months after the Super Bowl, they were still losing dollars. So the next year, they actually funded the halftime show all by themselves. That's how important advertisement is. You say, don't be violent. Well, honestly, the world has seen violence actually change things. So being realistic, but then you have the part of the Black Lives Movement in Kansas City. I don't know if I'll leave that one part in. So understanding that we could study this stuff. This is stuff that we can study. That I'm not 100% sold what Clint said is correct, that we should not politicize this particular issue. What he's talking about is most political issues you shouldn't politicize. But this may actually be an exception to that rule. And he's right. But when you talk to people like they're people and that their opinions matter, you can actually correct those polarizations. And I tried to produce videos about that kind of stuff, how we might actually do that. And I'm looking into even more education on how to communicate. So understand that I love Clint, and I would love to get together, and I would love to get together with some of the mainstream people, Intrepid Exotics, Lab Exotics. Lucas at Lab Exotics is actually a trauma therapist. Belle Stewart's an actual family therapist. Ryan McVeigh. Actually get a group together to talk about the influences of our media every 3 months. I would love to get together for just a talk for an hour or two with just us, with like USARK Florida, and see how we're actually communicating this type of stuff. I tried to talk about leadership with Ryan McVeigh. It was actually a very pleasant conversation, getting down to what you should be looking for. And understanding the way people talk can show you that they have empathy. And so this is very fascinating. And so having more understanding of how we're communicating to the public on these issues, so we become more trusted as a news source between the few of us who are actually trying to push better community service. So, I mean, I would love to hear back from people to talk about these issues. What do you actually think? Do you think this is something that we could, distribute, that we could grow with? Clint, I would love to hear from you. Love to understand that I love what you said, but understand that I have questions because I'm an actual scientist. So I'm not just going to go, oh, well, that must be true because you're a professional. You have a PhD. I'm going to go, oh, well, what you say is not wrong, but the Nazis actually had this one thing that might prove the opposite for this particular issue. And if we can understand that, then we can take a better step forward. And I'm not saying that you have to vote Democrat or Republican. I think that's the mistake, thinking that we have to separate it out like that. But separating it out like possibly, okay, what you might want to look for is people that are actually using any type of logic to actually talk about passing laws. And those are the people, no matter what party they are in, you should automatically vote for. Those are the people that are more likely to listen to you. Those are people that are more likely to take science seriously. And pushing that agenda, I don't think is a terrible idea. But that Nazi video I made, I tried to get people to talk to me before I published it. I tried to. I'm like, come on, guys. What do you think of this? How do you think of this? Am I doing this wrong? Should I not publish this? Should I publish this? Nobody gave a shit. It doesn't feel like anybody was willing to truly talk to me about the subject. To say, okay, so this is the problems that I see with publishing that. That's how I live my life, if you want to know the truth. I try to talk to somebody. When I'm at a show and I see a reptile I want, and it's like, okay, I don't know if I should take it now. I don't know if I want it. I don't know if this. I don't know that. I go ask somebody to try to talk me out of the animal. I've had people talk me into animals that weren't selling them. I have 2 Savannah monitors that a rescue knew that I would be able to bring them back to health and take care of them better than just some random person. So they spent 4 hours talking me into it. It's very fascinating how that works. When we change the way we see the world, we can actually make changes. But we have to change the way we think. We have to change the way we see things. We have to change. We have to be the man in the mirror. Okay? I love you, Clint. I hope you get back to me. Understand that I would love to do that study. Because right now, I see an issue with what you've said, but I can't tell you that you're wrong. But I can tell you there's evidence to support that there is a chance that you could be wrong on that particular issue. But we could do that study. That's an actual study that we could do, and I would bust my ass to put it together if other people want to work with me with it. But I do get tired of being ghosted and shit like that. Like, people just think that my opinion's worthless. No. I put studies together. I care about studies. I care about actual data. I love data. Oh, data. Oh, I love me some data. I spend months on data. That's not a joke. So if you want to put questionnaires together and get thousands of people to give us data, I will eat it up. I will eat it. I will eat it with a fox. I will eat it in a box. I will eat that data. Oh, I will. Oh, I will eat that data. Understand that I'm not a bad guy. I love my animals. I want to think about the future. And I want to solve the problems, not keep making them worse. Thank you for being here. I love you guys. Have a good night. Thank you.